Businesses and investors are moving their money towards addressing climate issues. As part of a three-part series, I'm taking a deep dive into the worlds of Wall Street and ESG and the role nuclear will play as a solution. First up in the series, 427's Emilie Mazzacurati. We're at 4-5 Coffee today. I'm Monica Trauzzi. This is Off the Menu. Emilie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about Wall Street, because the conversation on Wall Street has been a little slow, in my view, slow to incorporate the impacts of climate change when we're talking about investment prices. Do you think that Wall Street is speeding up now? Do you think that there's more of a focus on this?
We are seeing changes from the large banks, large asset managers that may not be visible to the human eye, if I may, in the sense that there's a lot of work being done internally that is not yet reflected externally, because those organizations like to have things really well set up and all their ducks in a row before they come out with details. And so you might see glossy report with a little bit of arm waving saying we're working on this. And I think for a number of those organizations, it's true, they're working really hard on it, but like some of those kids who wait until the last minute to talk because they want to make sure they get the full sentence right? There is a sense that they're going to wait until they're ready to really show what they're doing and how well they're doing it.
And they're planning for something that we kind of know, but is still far enough into the future that there's a little distance created between where we currently are and what the future reality might be.
If you want to plan in a 3 to 5 year horizon, which is the relevant business horizon for a number of corporations and for some of those investors, you don't have a good view of how those risks are going to manifest in the short-ish term. And that's really a blocker, is being able to bring that point home with fund managers on how has this driven performance in the past in the past 8 quarters maybe, and therefore how should this affect my investment decisions for the next year. It's not so much denial or not thinking that it's relevant, it's really trying to figure out where that tipping point is going to be, and whether it's going to be in 6 months, in 3 years, in 6 years. That has big implications for investment decisions.
The science tells us that we need to go carbon free. The technology, there's a lot of technology that can help us get there that's already existing. There's also technology that's being developed, but we need investment to happen. So what do you think that thing is that needs to happen to kick the investments into high gear?
We need strong policy signal. That's not the only thing that we need, but that has been the bane of everybody working in renewable or clean energy and carbon-free energy in the US, is the back and forth on policy decisions, what is in, what is out, what gets subsidies, what doesn't, and is the US committed to reducing emissions in a way that's meaningful or not? And of course, as political winds shift and the opinion of electors might change, may or may not be reflected by the government in place, it changes by state, there's no clear signal. And so a lot of investors who came in early in the clean tech space lost money because there wasn't a market for those technologies to grow, while in the meanwhile we continue to heavily subsidize carbon intensive technologies and fossil fuels.
Are there technologies that excite you the most?
I get more a little frustrated because, as you say, there is a lot of technology that exists that we're not using or that we're not using at scale.
Talk to me a little bit about Europe and how the regulatory environment there is impacting what we're seeing in the US.
Yeah, going back to this idea that policy is going to be an important driver in really shifting the market and investment patterns, the EU has been really forging ahead with regard to new regulation for corporates, for investors, for insurance, for pension funds, you name it, with a deliberate effort to raise the bar with regard to disclosures, with regard to how one looks at a green investment and carbon-free investment, what counts, making sure that there are labels and rules, and also rolling out a set of ambitious regulation around climate stress tests and pushing banks to really look at their portfolio and what happens in case of a disorderly transition scenario. All the planes are grounded and therefore airlines are at risk of going bankrupt or receiving maybe subsidies from the government, really looking into this type of detailed assumptions. And a lot of the banks that are subject to those regulations are also operating in the US. They're very large global banks. And so that's driving how those large players are thinking about climate risk, even if in the US we don't have yet this type of regulatory push.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.